Excellent. The coveted 2 slots away from Rosé and Studio Tour. Thank you all for coming. I'm Rick Song. Thank you for the introduction with the Brand Innovators Strategy Group. And we are an in-house consulting practice for brand innovators. And part of our job is to engage with the brand marketers in the BI community. The other part of our job is to make meaningful connections for our clients to those marketers. So I'm excited to moderate this panel today on industry growth trends, and I'm going to let my 2 illustrious panelists introduce themselves. So Michelle, you want to kick off? So we'll do like a 2-minute, quick career bio journey, and then your current role and what you do.
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Aragon from Spectrum Reach. Career journey, geez, how do I shave that into 2 minutes? Background is tourism marketer of agencies. I was at Constellation Brands, brand manager for Vodka. Been at Spectrum Reach for 3 years and we've been marketing and strategy there. Essentially, I oversee all of our internal and external communications, all of our brand strategy, and then also all of our CRM activities. So, did I cover that?
That's great.
Okay.
That's great. Scott?
Hi everybody, and I'd like to give you props for sticking around for one of the last 2 sessions before cocktail hour. But I've been with NPR for a long time, and I joined NPR back in the 90s, and before that was in commercial radio. So a long career in radio, and now NPR is not just radio, it's multimedia. So you can finally see that.
You've seen a lot.
Seen a lot.
Because radio is now audio, and audio is very much in vogue.
Yeah, as a former executive used to say, radio's not going anywhere, it's going everywhere. That's
Sure. And now when someone says you have a face for radio, it's not necessarily an insult. Well, where's my drummer? Okay, let's get started. So let's talk about industry growth trends. So depending on who you ask, right, the current economic environment, there's economic indicators that are very positive, right? But in the ad marketplace, there's softening, right? But there's still expectations. We all have expectations for growth. So over the last year and in general, what are some of those trends that you're seeing that are important into the next year? Michelle, you want to kick it off?
Sure. Why do I keep having to go first? No, I'm just kidding. So Spectrum Reach is part of Charter Communications. I'm sure you're all here to hear me talk about the Disney negotiations, right? Just kidding. Sorry, that's not corporate commentary. No, but in fairness, I think the biggest trend that we've been seeing, we've been talking about this all day today, is streaming. The proliferation of streaming services. What I will be able to say about the Disney negotiation is that it's a transformative model. And I think that that's fantastic both for the industry and for our customers that we serve. So as it relates specifically though to some of the trends, I mean there's I think, I gotta pull up my notes here because I don't want to not quote it right. The Nielsen Gauge report of July 2023 noted that streaming viewership is now at 39%. So you've heard a lot of noise and marketing, quite frankly, in the marketplace about streaming and the declines in linear. But the truth is that 61% is still linear viewing, and so it's still the lion's share of viewing. And I think that one of the things that we've heard here today and that is important is that it's not linear or streaming. It's a combination of both.
Is one of so speaking my language. When you talk about audio, I think that the backdrop to audio and the evolutions of audio is just that it's with you all the time. The audio was very much tethered to your car or kitchen or a power source. I'm sure there were transistor radios back in the day, but nobody did that. Nobody walked around with an ARP6 listening to a transistor radio. But now I can imagine many times where many of us walk out of the house without the phone and the earbuds. And that means right when you walk out, the ability to press play on whatever you like, whether it's linear or time shifted. And I think that's the terminology that makes the most sense to me. It's always there, and so the ability to have any audio source always on, it's just a game change, and I think that's the big shift.
I've spent 2 years at Clear Channel and then rebranded as iHeartMedia. So I have appreciation for formerly known as radio and what it means as audio. The reality is, as consumers, we just want access to listen, watch all the time on all channels, right? And I think a little known fact is that unless you work for radio companies, that's still the dominant listening in the country, right? I think iHeart reaches 90x% of the U.S. from one particular company, but the fact that digital has introduced, the on-demand audio experience anytime, anywhere, now it's just become another pervasive channel, right?
True, and I think when you think about digital, I think the inclination is to think about time shifted and just podcasting.
Drive time radio, right? Drive time, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not true because the digital streams are radio, especially for us. It's a simulcast of the actual feed that goes out to radio stations across the country. So that is a digital audio source with the exact same sponsorship announcement ads that are in a terrestrial audio feed for any radio station in the country. So that, if you want to love all that other digital audio, then it's all the same thing. And when you talk about audiences and what they want, I think it's beyond want, it's the expectation that the content that they want is just going to be available to them wherever they are. And that's been the real game changer. And thankfully NPR is there, and it's those audiences, to us anyway, that they aren't disparate audiences that have a bit of overlap, but the same audience that just accesses through different platforms.
So when you think about growth and all the dynamics you just mentioned, what's going to be most important in driving growth of the business in the coming year?
It's such a great question. It depends on who you are, I think. Where is the access point? NPR music is for us, in many cases, a younger demographic, and is that the access point to NPR more broadly, or is that just the only thing they listen to? So, I think growth is just the expectation and the necessity to be everywhere that audiences are, and that's where we'll find growth.
And Michelle, what about you from a growth perspective? What do you think about?
Yeah, so I think one of the best kept secrets that you all probably don't know here is that the Spectrum TV streaming app is actually a leader in the streaming universe. We're actually number one from a time spent, hours household viewed, and that was reported by Comscore's TV Intelligence Report, recently, I think, in July. Or no, sorry, Q1 2023. But anyway, that's a huge thing. So not only do we have strength in linear, but we also have strength in streaming. And so that's one of the things that we've done from a marketing perspective is how do we leverage both of those strengths and really position ourselves as a true multi-stream video expert and partner for our customers.
So on that train of thought, let's talk about innovation for a second. So on the whole notion of growth, innovation obviously going to be a huge factor. What are you guys kind of looking at from innovation standpoint and the emerging technologies that are associated with that innovation, for next year and beyond? Scott, you want to take that one?
Sure. When I think folks think about innovation nowadays, the primary topic that comes up is AI, and that's one that we're, let's say, shying away from. We just haven't found a specific utility for that beyond maybe research. NPR's unique calling card is a connection with the audience. It's very distinct from many other media companies. There are others that can speak to that, sure, but it's one that's fairly unique to us, given the tone and style of presentation. So emerging technologies are things that we'll deploy to create greater connections with our audience, to create audience segmentations that advertisers can buy, to take our audiences and look at them through different lenses and be hopefully a more nimble vehicle for marketers.
Michelle, what are the technologies that Spectrum is thinking about?
So I have kind of two answers. One on AI. We actually partner with a company called Waymark, and we are true champions of small and medium-sized businesses, and we believe in the democratization of creative. And so what Waymark does is it scrapes the internet for any sort of online, whether it's information or images, and we're able to then create an ad in minutes instead of like weeks or months. Now it might not be the perfect ad, but it's a fantastic starting place, and then working with our in-house agency Kernel, we're able to then kind of take that access to creative through through the power of AI and mapping our technology to any small business owner, which is really a game changer. And I think it's a really fantastic offering that we have. But the other thing that we offer is our multi-screen attribution. And so that, I think, is something that's on the mind of everyone in this room, is media performance, how are we doing that, and the foundation of our multi-screen attribution capabilities rests in the aggregated and de-identified data that we access from our set-top boxes as well as our streaming devices. And so that is really critical and important, I think, because only Spectrum Reach can really deliver a true one-to-one match of an ad exposure and then an action that was taken holistically across both streaming and linear, which is in one report, actually. One report is pretty cool, I think, because as a marketer, when you're kind of trying to stitch things together, that's huge, and especially in a privacy-focused way. So those are kind of the two things that I would say that we're driving from an innovation perspective.
So along those lines, what about channel mix, right? To your point, what's going to take priority, or what insights have you learned from this coming year that you apply to kind of how you prioritize channel mix in the coming year? Michelle?
We've done a lot of experimentation this year, but I mean, it's going to be the same thing that we tell our customers from a multi-screen perspective is exactly how I go to market.
You're eating your own dog.
I mean, I was going to say that, but you said it. I mean, yes, because we truly believe in what we sell and how we partner with our customers, and so we do the same thing. So yes, we leverage everything, whether that's social, CTV, linear, audio. We actually did an out-of-home stunt this year, so we pretty much are looking at.
And are any of those channels standing out as you think about growth in the coming year?
We've had a lot of success in our programmatic, actually. It's been really great. I've actually shifted from, I think most B2B marketers tend to always be thought of as just lower performance aspects from a conversion perspective. And so I've really shifted the strategy to more of a full funnel. And so now we're doing more awareness and mid-funnel consideration activities. And so I think that's, I completely lost my train of thought. Because one stood out is what you asked me. And so what I was going to say is that our programmatic mix of digital, inclusive of CTV and our streaming TV app, has been really a game changer for us. Coupled with linear, though, because linear is the foundation to any multi-screen campaign.
We still can't discount linear, right? Linear and CTV.
No, I mean, I said this previously, it's still the lion's share of viewership, right?
Right.
So, and what Scott noted is that, you have to follow the consumer behavior, and people are still watching. There's still scale there.
I'm just sorry none of I used to work at Nielsen before coming here, so I'm just sad none of my former Nielsen counterparts are here for this panel to hear all your praise for linear. Anyway, so.
I'm praising both, by the way.
But, no, of course. But, so you mentioned social, and there's been a lot of conversation today about the impact of influencer marketing, working with creators for driving growth from the last panel. Scott, what's the NPR view on the work with the creator community and influencer marketing?
It's for us. There's not really a creator community that influences what we do on a daily basis with journalism, with news presentation. So I'll say that, and then acknowledge that there are hundreds of member stations around the country, boots on the ground, in communities across the country that contribute content to NPR every day. So it's not so much of an outsourcing of a creator community, more so than relying on local journalists. And that's one of the unique calling cards of NPR that will always be there as a membership-based organization, and one that creates connection with with listeners and communities, it's just hard to rival. That I think we've all heard a lot about the dearth, maybe death even of local journalism, local newspapers. And it's a very sad story, but NPR and public radio stations around the country are still there, and in many cases are the sole source of news and information in the communities that they serve. So that speaks a little bit to the creator community. On the social media side of things, our journalists are all very active through a range of social media platforms, connecting with audiences everywhere, and that one-to-one connection. And they do respond when listeners communicate. Is super cool. They're not on a pedestal behind a wall and hidden from communication or above it. And that I think is also unique to us. And many folks have heard the NPR story of leaving the former Twitter, and that was Elon deciding to label us as state-owned media, and then I think morphed into, I started to state-owned, went to state-controlled. Our communications folks had a dialogue with him to try to get it right, and eventually we got poop emoji, and that shut it all down. So that was it. So we shut down the NPR channel on.
Gotcha. But to that point, that's from an NPR perspective, in an era of misinformation, fake news, weaponization of social media, NPR has a responsibility, right, to respond accordingly. How is NPR responding to all that stuff?
Could be above it and sometimes not responding. And, it's that old joke, brought a tote bag to a knife fight. That's sometimes NPR's approach to things is we just don't engage. We don't fight back.
I mean, you had me at poop emoji, so.
Yeah, it is. It's our style, and rightly or wrongly, I think a lot of people can debate it. But we don't go into the mob. We just don't do it. We rise above and back away, and continue to try to engage on an intellectual level. And that there are many news organizations out there today, and not to name names or even to indict anybody for the approach, but they've kicked the team. They're one side or the other, and it's a business model that's worked for these companies, and I'm sure we all know it well. That's just not ever going to be the case in NPR, and I think that makes us unique. And for the listeners, the fans of news, the seekers of news and information, they're going to find their way to NPR, and they're going to stick with us. And so that's I think, however anyone wants to judge NPR's approach in terms of whether or not to get into a battle, that's for others to judge. But the journalistic intent and the sincerity and the authenticity, that's never going to change.
Well, I can say as a customer, I certainly appreciate it. You're absolutely right. The divisive nature of media today and social media and quote-unquote journalism is kind of frightening. So I think, and there has to be NPRs in the world that try to keep an even perspective on what's happening. So to that point, let's switch gears for a second and talk about brand differentiation. Right? Always an important thing, in driving growth in any environment. How are you each thinking about differentiating your brands? By the way, two powerhouse brands in very competitive categories.
Oh,
Right?
thanks for saying that.
So, and I'm a customer of both, so I can see that too. But yeah, Michelle, how do you think about brand differentiation?
Well, I've been thinking about it for 3 years. We've done a lot of work over the past 3 years. We did a customer segmentation study. We've been looking at the customer journey holistically. One of the things, though, that I think we all probably know, and it's state obvious, is that it's a very competitive and cluttered kind of landscape that's super dynamic and constantly changing. But most, at least the people, or at least the companies and brands in our space, kind of are all saying the same thing. So it's really important to try to figure out, well, what can we say? How can we say it differently? If everybody's positioning themselves as a one-stop shop, or saying, and you can reach anyone, anywhere, or whatever it is. We have premium inventory, and we are, yes. So we can reach, so we've been working really hard on that, and we actually have a new positioning that we're going to be rolling out in the coming months, and so we're really excited about that because I think it really it's going to position ourselves for continued success. So I can't really share specifically what it is, but it's really exciting.
Okay, something exciting coming from Michelle. It's coming soon. Stay tuned. Scott, what about brand differentiation for NPR?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying before. I think that the style, the tone, the intent of the journalism, but beyond all that is really the relationship that NPR has with our audience, that relationship of trust that's just incredibly unique. And the old saying about trust, years to build, seconds to break, we're going to break it. We're going to stay true to that, and I think that's our true differentiating calling card. And in a room full of marketers, worth mentioning too, that's the difference maker for our sponsors. When sponsors run campaigns with us, what they're trying to tap into is what's so hard to find, and it's that relationship of trust. And the brand alignment within NPR, because that trust is so high, is the thing that we often measure for whether it's resonance, relevance, appreciation, trust, authenticity. Those are the things that are byproducts of most of the NPR campaigns for our sponsors.
Well said, well said. So let's, 2 minutes, is that 2 minute warning? Do I have time to take questions from the audience too? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, is that a real 2 minutes or is it like 5 minutes? Let's talk about challenge for a second. Is there an industry, what one industry issue, if we think about the broader ad ecosystem, are we still, kind of trying to solve that hasn't been solved? That affects.
Just one.
Well, if you had to pick one, I should have phrased that.
I would say true cross-platform. That's my answer.
From a measuring perspective.
I mean, from everything perspective. I think that's.
Well, operationally, we've been
Well,
talking about that for a couple decades now.
I've said this in a previous kind of speaking engagement, that another is interoperability, which is a challenge in when you continue to
If I can say ditto, I mean, I 100% agree. Trying to map the listener journey, and for all of us, we differentiate platforms and environments and all of the things we have to do in order to place ads in the right place. A lot of listeners just don't. They just hit play on their phone, and you ask them if they listen to an NPR show, through a podcast or a radio, whatever. My guess is for most of them the answer is, man, I listen to NPR, and that's it. And the inability of us to measure across platforms, whether it's linear or time shift, that's a challenge.
Yeah, well, like I said, coming from my former stomping ground, still trying to solve it. Questions from the audience? There's one over here. Will you take the mic?
I have a question for Michelle.
So, my name is Gavin Sternberg. Nice to meet you.
The boss is on Sure.
No pressure. Is this being recorded?
In the past few years, Spectrum Reach has had one of their own. Tim Chiusano finds social media fame of his own.
Yeah.
So how has Spectrum Reach's marketing strategy been affected by Tim's amazing daily TikTok vlogs?
Okay, I love this. I'm on a panel with questions about Tim. Tim is awesome. I love Tim. He's my partner in crime. He's actually in the office right next to me, and so we collaborate very, very closely on driving the brand strategy, and then he's leading kind of like our content and delivery. I mean, his slice of life TikToks are really incredible, and so really what we're doing is how do we take kind of Tim's brilliance and how do we think about that and applying that for our brand, Spectrum Reach. We haven't really had a strong kind of content creation strategy historically, and so that's one thing that Tim is really driving for us, which is again in the kind of what we're planning to roll out moving forward next year. So stay tuned.
Great.
Any other questions? I have one last question. We've got a multi-channel panel up here, so I'll say, for our audience, what's one thing you're reading, watching, or listening to that you recommend for our audience?
I was like, how do I say this? But I've been watching Suits. I've been watching Suits. I'm not gonna say on, but.
Okay, Suits. I've heard there's a big surge in that particular show on that other platform.
Correct.
Scott?
I've been reading Colson Whitehead's new book from Manchester.
Wow, okay. I'm listening to Jay Shetty's podcast for the first time. I know he's been around for a while. It's super inspiring if you want to hear something inspiring. Anyway, I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. Please give our panelists a big round of applause.